Liquid fertilizer. Liquid fertilizer can be easily prepared and is very useful in many ways, including for nurseries, small gardens, fruit trees, and other large crops. Nutrient-rich fertilizer can be made from just a small amount of manure and other organic materials. Liquid fertilizer can easily be sprayed over large areas of land. Liquid fertilizer is made in very strong concentration, so it needs to be mixed with water before being used. Liquid fertilizer can be stored, and it lasts a long time. Liquid fertilizer can be made in a container of any size, from a bucket to a large drum. The more you make, the better. This fertilizer can be made from any organic material and can be stored anywhere, as long as it is protected from hot sun and hard rain. How to make liquid fertilizer. Step 1. Prepare a container, for example, a drum. Make sure the drum does not leak. Cut off the lid by cutting around its edges. Then pound down any sharp areas along this edge. Step 2. Clean the inside of the drum using detergent, lemon, and water, then dry the drum in the sun for 2 to 3 days. Make sure that all oil, petrol, or other poisonous materials are gone, because when the liquid fertilizer is made, bacteria will live in it. Poisonous materials can kill this bacteria. Step 3. Fill 1/3 of the drum with green grass, weeds, green leaves, legume cuttings, or seaweed if you live near the ocean. Using weeds in liquid fertilizer will give multiple benefits. The weeds will provide useful minerals to the fertilizer, and removing the weeds will help reduce weed problems. If using legumes, don't put branches in the liquid fertilizer, because these branches take a long time to rot and make it difficult to stir the fertilizer. Seaweed contains nutrients and minerals that are useful and important for plants, but are sometimes lacking from the soil, manure, and plants. Seaweed must be washed first to remove the salt, because salt can have a bad effect on soil quality and plant growth. When collecting seaweed, only collect fresh seaweed, because dry seaweed contains much more salt. Step 4. Fill the next 1/3 of the drum with manure. Fresh animal manure contains more nutrients than dry manure. Combine different types of animal manure, if available, to achieve the best result, as different manures contain different types of nutrients. Bird manure is best, and then pig, goat, cow, and horse manure. The smaller the animal, the stronger the manure. Mouse manure is really great if you can collect it. Therefore, less bird manure is needed than cow or horse manure. Step 5. Add 2/3 shovels of healthy, living soil. Healthy soil contains many biota, which will speed up the process of turning organic materials into fertilizer and help prepare the nutrients for plant use. When bacteria, soil biota, eats the organic materials in liquid fertilizer, this bacteria will continue to multiply. Putting bacteria into the soil is just as important as providing nutrients for plants. Step 6. Fill the container with water. Step 7. Other materials that can be added include 1/2 to 1 shovel of kitchen cooking ash, to add minerals and potassium, and 1 shovel of fish pond soil. Step 8. If easily available, animal carcasses can also be added to the liquid fertilizer, such as rat carcass, fish heads and bones, chicken carcass, and smaller animal innards. This will add nutrients and minerals to the fertilizer. Remember, the most important thing is to provide more bacteria, which will speed up the rotting of organic materials in the fertilizer. Step 9. Cover the drum to prevent animals, like mosquitoes and flies, and rain from entering the drum, and to avoid direct sunlight, which could kill bacteria. Step 10. Stir the liquid fertilizer for 5 to 10 minutes every day for 2 weeks. This must be done to add oxygen to the fertilizer. In this fertilizer, there are 2 types of bacteria, aerobic and non-aerobic. Aerobic bacteria needs oxygen, while non-aerobic bacteria does not need oxygen. Both bacteria work in the same way, but aerobic bacteria works better to create quality fertilizer because it decomposes evenly and it reduces bad smells. So the more often you stir, the faster the decomposing process and better the fertilizer quality. Using liquid fertilizer. To use liquid fertilizer, it must first be mixed with water. Combine 1 part liquid fertilizer with 20 parts water. 1 to 20. If liquid fertilizer is directly applied to plants, especially in large amounts, and not first diluted with water, it will burn plant leaves and roots because the fertilizer concentration is still too strong. Young plants are generally more sensitive than older plants. Use liquid fertilizer once or twice a week for vegetables and small trees. For fruit trees that are already established, use liquid fertilizer once or twice a month. When watering, you can use a container, like a can with holes punched into the bottom. For vegetables, first apply mulch around the plant, and then spray with fertilizer. If possible, avoid spraying the leaves directly. Don't let the still concentrated liquid fertilizer burn the plant. This is also important with trees. If the liquid fertilizer is almost finished, you can add more organic material. Don't forget to continue stirring this liquid fertilizer and wait 2 weeks before use. Don't wait until the fertilizer is completely finished, because then you will have to repeat the entire process from the beginning. Compost. Compost is made up of decomposed organic matter, which is a concentrated, rich nutrient source. The main ingredient is carbon and a small amount of nitrogen, as well as other nutrients, minerals, and soil biota. Compost doesn't just provide nutrients for plants, but it also improves soil quality. There are many ways to make compost, from simple mixtures of rice husks and cow manure to ones that are made from a variety of materials. Use available materials and experiment for yourself. Making quick compost heaps. A compost heap will work well if it is made all at once. This means all the materials are collected and then the compost heap is made layer by layer. A compost heap should be about 1 meter wide, 1 meter long, and 1 meter high to create enough heat to decompose well. You can use many different materials such as animal manure, grass, weeds, water, plants, leaves, seaweed, soil, rice and coffee husks, sawdust, animal carcasses, mice, fish, chickens, and so on, urine, small bits of paper which can be broken down, and other natural materials which can be easily found. Try combining about 1/3 manure, 1/3 dry leaves, and 1/3 coffee husks, rice husks, or sawdust. These amounts do not have to be exact, just estimate. Just estimate. Add a small amount of bird manure, pigeon, chicken, or duck, or a large amount of animal manure. These materials should be in layers, 5 to 10 centimeters thick. The first layer is made up of organic plant material, dry leaves, husks, and other dry materials. The second layer is of decomposed animal manure. The third layer is a little kitchen ash and healthy soil. Then add some water. Repeat these steps until the heap is 1 meter high, 1 meter wide, and 1 meter long. Add water twice during the process of making compost. In the beginning, add about 2/3 buckets of water, then add 2/3 buckets more when the compost heap is already finished. Water is very important for the composting process, but not too much. The compost should be moist, but not wet. Cover the compost to protect it from rain and direct sunlight, and keep it somewhere safe from animals. A cover will also help to keep the heat in the compost. This cover can be made of palm fronds, an old tarpaulin, banana trunks or leaves, or a thick layer of leaves. If all these steps are followed, the compost will become very hot, around 65 to 68 degrees Celsius, because of bacteria activity in decomposing. After 2 to 3 weeks, the temperature will cool down again to around 45 degrees C. The compost now needs to be turned inside out, because the outer layer does not receive as much heat. It will decompose slower than the inner layer. After the compost is turned, add 2 more buckets of water if needed, then return the compost cover. The compost heap will be ready for use in 2 weeks. Once the compost is ready to be used in the garden, cover the entire garden area with a 3 to 5 centimeter thick layer of compost, or use 2 handfuls of compost for every seedling and 4 handfuls of compost for every mature plant. Making slow compost heaps. Slow compost can be made from only 2 or 3 types of material, but you need to balance the amount of manure with plant materials. A good mixture is about 1/3 manure with 2/3 plant materials. Slow compost will take about 2 to 3 months before it is ready to be used. This type of compost is not as nutrient rich, but it is still good enough to improve soil conditions. How to use compost. To ensure a continuous supply of compost, start to make a new compost heap when the old compost heap is already half used up. Apply compost to land 2 weeks before planting seedlings or directly planting seeds. This will allow the nutrients and compost to soak into the soil. After planting, wait about 2 weeks before adding more compost. The best place to use compost for trees is directly under the outer layer of leaves, on the ground of the tree's outer crown, not around the tree trunk. This place is around the bottom of the tree's outside leaves, and it is where the tree's roots feed the most. Don't compost around the tree trunk, because this could cause the trunk to rot. This is true for all types of fertilizers. Smart ideas. If the compost doesn't smell good or smells very sour, this means that too much manure was used. If the plant materials are not decomposed enough, this means that too little manure was used. Making compost baskets and trenches. Information taken from Faith Garden Manual, written by Mindanao Baptist Rural Life Center, Bansalan, Philippines. Step 1. Dig holes in the middle of the garden plot, about 1 hand length deep, 15 to 20 centimeters, and 3 hand lengths wide. Leave 1 meter in between each hole, about 1 large step, or dig a lengthwise trench in the middle of the garden plot, about 1 hand length deep and 2 hand lengths wide. Step 2. Place bamboo sticks around the edges of the holes or trench. These sticks should be about 1 hand length apart and 2 hand lengths above ground. Step 3. Make a fence by weaving bamboo or leaves through the sticks. Step 4. Add materials to the holes or trench in the following order. 1. A thin layer, about 5 centimeters, of small branches or dry grass to provide air. 2. Different types of manure. 3. Grasses, weeds, leaves, and washed seaweed. 4. Add 1 handful of kitchen ash to each hole or per meter of the trench. Step 5. As the first batch of compost materials decompose, add new materials following the same order as before. The compost does not need to be turned. Step 6. Plant seeds when the compost at the very bottom begins to decompose. Leave about 1 hand's length in between the seed and the compost basket or trench. Step 7. Water the plants regularly for 2 weeks after planting. After this time, water the compost holes or trench directly, not the plants. The plant roots will grow into the hole or trench. This will improve plant growth and conserve water. Step 8. When the plants are harvested, the compost from the holes or trench can be shoveled out and used on the garden plots. Then, new compost materials can be added to the holes or trench in preparation for the next planting. Smart ideas. This technique can also be used for young fruit trees. Make the compost baskets or trench 1 month before planting. Swales can be used as compost trenches for sloped land. To allow continuous cropping, fill the baskets or trenches at different times. Each plot can be filled 2 weeks to 1 month apart. The baskets or trench sticks can be made higher to be used for growing vine plants, such as beans, cucumbers, and other climbing vegetables. Compost pits. A compost pit is a great way to supply plants with nutrients. Examples of plants that work well with this system are bananas and papayas. Almost any available materials can be added to this compost, such as leaves, weeds, manure, rice, coffee husks, and paper, or even urine. The compost that collects at the bottom of the pit can be dug up each year and used for plants. Benefits of using compost pits. Reduces with weed problems. Uses excess water and organic waste. Stores more water in the soil and in the compost materials so that less water is needed for plants, especially in the dry season. Smart ideas. To deal with mosquito and insect problems inside the pit, soak a handful of neem leaves in a bucket of water for 2 days. Then pour this liquid with the leaves into the compost pit. Repeat every 3 months. Direct composting. Compost can also be placed directly on top of the garden plots or land where the garden plots will be made. The soil will receive the benefits of nutrients that are released, and this will increase the amount of soil biota. Diluted urine. Human urine is an easily available, free, and continuous source of nutrients. Urine contains high amounts of nitrogen. If urine is diluted with water, 10 to 20% urine and 80 to 90% water, it becomes a great fertilizer for fruit trees. Citrus trees respond especially well. Urine can also be added to compost pits and other types of compost heaps. Urine is not recommended for use in vegetable gardens. Mature fruit trees will receive benefits from direct urination, but not continuously on the same place. Earthworm Farms. At the beginning of this module, the benefits of worms were explained. More worms in the soil means better soil. Farming earthworms is a simple way to quickly increase the number of earthworms in your soil. Materials needed: an old bucket, coconut husk fiber, cow or horse manure that has been soaked in water, leftover kitchen vegetables, a flat piece of wood or metal, a large rock. How to make an earthworm farm. 1. Make 10 coin-sized holes at the bottom and on the sides of the bucket. 2. Dig a hole in the garden, large enough for the bucket to fit inside of. The top of the bucket should be about 1 hand's length above soil. 3. Fill the bucket with coconut husk fiber, leftover vegetables, and lastly with animal manure. Use about the same amount of each material. 4. Cover the bucket with a piece of wood or metal so that animals cannot enter, and then place the large rock on top to hold it in place. Make sure that the materials in the bucket are moist, especially during the dry season. Earthworms will come and eat the materials in the bucket and then return to the soil. Earthworms are useful for small and large gardens and even for rice paddies. Add more materials to the bucket if needed. Every few months, clean out the bucket. The materials in the bucket can be used as compost. After, add new materials to the bucket. Mulch. What is mulch? In natural forests, leaves, rotting materials, animal manure, and even dead animals create a mulch which covers the forest ground like a skin. This skin is continuously being added to and is continuously decomposing. Mulch provides nutrients and humus to the soil as it decomposes, which are then used by plants and trees as food. We can copy nature by using mulch to make a skin for the soil. This skin is an important natural protection against drying from the sun and erosion because of rain. This skin also provides food for the soil biota in your garden. Mulch that is used on gardens, agricultural land, cropland, and reforestation areas can be grass or tree cuttings, leaves, compost, decomposed manure, rice coffee husks, used paper, rocks, animal bones, or any material, so long as it is organic. Make sure there are no non-organic materials such as plastic rubbish or glass bottles. Benefits of using mulch. It keeps soil temperature stable, which means that the soil temperature is cooler in hot temperatures and is warmer in cool temperatures. This moderate temperature is good for plant growth. Remember, this is the same as with people. Another benefit, it reduces weeds. A layer of mulch will prevent sunlight from entering. Weeds can only grow if there is light, so without light, the seeds of weed plants will die. Another benefit of using mulch is that it provides organic matter and valuable nutrients for the soil. Also, mulch will become humus, which will improve soil structure and increase the number of soil biota. it increases the soil's water storage capacity. It helps to neutralize the soil's pH levels. The soil will become easier to dig and manage. It reduces erosion. And of course, all of the points above will help to increase production. How to use mulch. Apply mulch regularly and as thick as possible. 5 to 10 centimeters is generally the ideal thickness, but for fruit trees, up to 20 centimeters thick is better. Apply mulch to the soil before planting. Apply mulch to the whole plot, not just around the vegetables and plants. Use fine textured mulch for vegetable plots and a coarser textured mulch for mature plants and trees. For trees, apply mulch underneath the outside leaves, because this is where the tree's roots will feed. Regularly applying mulch will improve the tree's health and increase the size and amount of fruits. Don't let the mulch touch plant stems or tree trunks. This is very important to avoid rotting, especially in the wet season. Use rocks, branches, or other materials that can be used to border the garden. This will help hold the mulch in place and prevent erosion. If you are using mulch and compost at the same time, apply the compost underneath the mulch to maximize the benefits of the compost. If you are using weeds as mulch, separate the weed seeds first and give them to animals or use in liquid compost. This will reduce future weed growth. Plant legumes or other plants that can be used for mulch. Remember to always think of the most multifunctional plants. For example, plants that can produce mulch material but also provide food for humans or animal fodder. Function as a windbreak, fence, or help to reduce erosion, improve soil, produce firewood, building materials, and so on. Fine mulch for vegetables, coarse mulch for trees. Leftover farming materials, like rice, coffee husks, can be composted or dried before being used as mulch. These materials should be put in a pile for 1 month or more before being combined with manure to make compost. Then use this compost as mulch. Legumes. Legumes are a type of plant that gives nitrogen to the soil. There are many different types of legumes. Some are annuals and others are perennials. Legumes are an important part of any system and can be used in many different ways. How do they work? Legume plants bind nitrogen from the air in soil to nodules, which are attached to the plant roots. These nodules are very small, about the size of a match head or smaller. These nodules provide nitrogen for the legume plant. Excess nitrogen, which the plant cannot use, is let out into the soil, becoming available for other plants to use. A type of bacteria called rhizobium attach themselves to the roots of the legume plant and live there. This bacteria is only released into the soil after the roots die. Types of legume plants. Annual legumes, all beans, peas, and clover plants. Perennial legumes, all types of acacias, Leucaena, Leucaena, Casuarina, Sesbania, Moringa, Gliricidia, tamarind. Those are perennial legumes. Annual legumes were beans, peas, and clover plants. Legumes provide many benefits. Some legume products include food, animal fodder, mulch, and compost material, timber, firewood, and medicines. Legumes can also function as windbreaks, living fences, trees for shade, and trellises. Legumes can be planted together with other plants or crops. Smart ideas. Perennial legumes. Prune 3 or 4 times a year. If a legume tree's branches are pruned, the roots will also die back to the same amount that is pruned. Therefore, the dead roots with nodules will release all of their nitrogen into the soil. Other plants can then use the nitrogen that is released. The prunings can also be used as mulch, animal fodder, or compost material. As the legume grows back, its roots will also grow back, and new nodules will grow on them. This is a sustainable cycle. If a legume tree dies, it will still provide nitrogen from its roots for a few years afterwards. Smart ideas. Annual legumes. Prune back after the first flowers grow. This is because these plants need a lot of nitrogen when producing seeds, so there won't be much nitrogen left in the soil for other plants. Techniques for using annual legumes. 1. Crop rotation. Different crops use different amounts of nutrients to grow. If you grow the same type of crop over and over again on the same plot of land, some nutrients will become depleted. The soil and its nutrients will then become in balance. Some examples of plants and the nutrients they use to grow. Pumpkins and melons like as much nutrients as they can get. Corn and tomatoes use a lot of nitrogen and some other nutrients. Vegetables use less nutrients. Beans and peas use nitrogen and other nutrients, but they also produce nitrogen. Carrots and radishes use less nutrients. It is good to rotate plants from plot to plot each season, or even better, to grow different types of crops together. Crop rotation will also help to reduce pest and disease problems. It is important to let the land lie fallow during a crop rotation cycle. Fallow time, or rest time, means that nothing is grown for a period of time. During this fallow time, mulch, manure, and compost can be applied and left on top of the soil or turned into the soil. Animals can also be used during a fallow period to add manure, improve the soil, and reduce weed problems. Fallow time allows the soil to recover. 2. Green manure crops. During the fallow period, the soil can be improved and prepared for the next crop to be planted by planting green manure crops. Green manure crops should be planted thickly and should cover the whole land area. Green manure crops can be a mix of legumes, annual grasses, and other annual plants. Green manure crops are not grown as food for humans, but only for the soil's benefits. As soon as the first flowers appear, cut down the green manure crop and leave it on the land as mulch. This technique does take time and labor, and maybe even a little bit of money, but there are many benefits, such as nitrogen from legume roots is left in the soil to be used by the next crop that is planted, mulch and compost material, and increased in humus and soil biota. These benefits help improve soil structure and will increase production of the next crop. So the increased productivity of the next crop pays back the time and work that you have spent on the green manure crop. Growing and cutting green manure crop. Smart ideas. Green manure crops can also be used on land that has not yet been used for crops. This technique will help to prepare the soil for future production. 3. Annual crop integration. Legumes can be integrated with vegetable crops or other crops. This technique will increase diversity in crops harvested from one plot of land. The other crops growing will benefit from the excess nitrogen which is produced by legumes. Crop integration can follow any pattern as long as it suits the plants and shape of the land. Techniques for using perennial legumes. 1. Living fences. Legumes are easily grown from seeds or cuttings. If the plant is continually pruned, it will become a thick, living fence. Living fences can also function as windbreaks for vegetable plots, chicken and animal systems, aquaculture, and seedling nurseries. Legume plants grow quickly, and the material from pruning can be used as animal fodder and as material for mulch and compost. Living fences will also protect crops from animals. 2. Legume swales and terraces. On sloped land, legumes can be used to prevent erosion. Plant legumes to create living swales or terraces. Plant the seeds following the contour of the land. Plant them very close together, 3 to 5 centimeters. For more information about tree swales and terraces, see Module 8, Forests, Tree Crops, and Bamboo. 3. Perennial crop integration. Legume trees can be integrated with fruit trees, coconut trees, coffee plants, vegetables, and other crops. Legumes will provide nitrogen, mulch, as well as protection from winds and erosion. All of these plants can be integrated in rows, plots, or combined in other ways. Taller legume trees like casuarina provide shade for coffee, vanilla, and other plants that like shade. Animals also need shade, and legume trees can provide this function. 4. Pioneer trees. Pioneer trees are trees that are planted first in a system. These trees will help prevent erosion, provide protection for future crops, improve the soil, and provide mulch. Pioneer trees often grow in hard soil conditions. Because of this, use trees that don't need a lot of water and are most endurable in hard conditions. Legume trees can be pioneer trees because they easily grow from seeds or cuttings, grow quickly, provide nitrogen for other crops. Smart ideas. Almost all types of legume trees have short lifespans. Use short-life legume trees as pioneer trees and longer-life legume trees as windbreaks, living fences, and for providing shade. Plant lots of legume trees as pioneer trees, then after 1 or 2 years, cut down the weaker or smaller trees to be used as mulch and to provide space for new trees. If legume trees are planted on sloped land, when their nitrogen is released into the soil, it will slowly move down to lower areas. So lower areas will receive enough nutrient supply. Remember, legumes are multifunctional. They provide many benefits. Try to take advantage of as many of these benefits as possible. Fertile soil. Fertile, healthy soil is a strong foundation for continually producing productive, sustainable crops. Whether for a small home garden or a large agricultural farm, if the soil is well managed in a healthy farm system, the soil will become more fertile over time and continually produce healthy food and crops. Non-organic fertilizers. In the last few decades, the use of non-organic fertilizers has increased dramatically all over the world. In Indonesia, the practice of using non-organic fertilizer is supported by government programs to increase farming produce. So almost all village cooperations, KUDs, and farming stores sell non-organic fertilizers directly to farmers. However, even if used correctly, non-organic fertilizers only provide short-term benefits. The information above is only the writer's opinion and an attempt to analyze and suggest to farmers that if we do use chemical materials or non-organic fertilizers, we should truly understand the negative effects of these materials on our environment. Farmers in Indonesia often have difficulty accessing information about these topics, in part because there are not a lot of field workers that really understand such topics. Once we damage the land, it will take a long time for the land to recover to its normal condition. When, of course, food production for community needs must still be met, if non-organic fertilizers are being used, water irrigation must be good enough to supply even more water for crops. Because non-organic fertilizers stimulate plants to soak up more nutrients and water from the soil than what they normally need for growth. Non-organic fertilizers are similar to stimulating medicines. If the practice of using non-organic fertilizers continues, in time the nutrients in the soil will be used up. The amount of acidity in soils will increase. Bacteria, microorganisms in the soil will die. Soil structure will deteriorate, and farmers in the soil will be dependent on non-organic fertilizers indefinitely. Also, many non-organic fertilizers do not provide all the nutrients and minerals the plants need to grow. Even in highly developed countries where there is good access to information, there are many problems due to use of non-organic materials, let alone in still developing countries. Some serious problems that can happen are health problems, sometimes skin, lungs, and even cancer, and problems to do with soil, such as too many nutrients in the soil. If there are too many nutrients in the soil, nutrient lockup will occur, which means that there are nutrients stored in the soil, but they are not available to plants for use. Excess nutrients will be wasted, especially nitrogen, and washed away by water into wells, ponds, rivers, and oceans. This also causes problems for water quality, which can affect fish and water, plants, animals, humans, and all living things in the surrounding environment. Besides the negative impacts on the environment and ourselves, non-organic fertilizers are expensive, and it is not definite that a farmer's produce will sell to the market. This can make it difficult for farmers to pay back the money or loan they have used to buy non-organic fertilizers.